Hello, Roger. Nice to see you, man. Thanks for coming out. Well, I'm ready when anybody is. My tendency is to forge ahead. I think I was going to get an introduction out of Seth, but I could live without that. Not that it wouldn't have been interesting, I'm sure, but maybe too interesting. So that's what should I just go ahead? Is it okay? I'm happy for you to say something.
I really was just, I just wanted to.
I didn't see you in the room. That's why I thought, yeah, go ahead.
You're fine. You're fine. I just want to welcome everyone this evening. I mentioned to folks a bit earlier, but a number of have come in. There is water and refreshments over there. We welcome people that are watching on the live stream or watch on the recording here. Really glad to have David Radcliff with us. I know a number of you have gone on New Community Project experiences with him or heard David before and look forward to his sharing. Yeah, who's been on a New Community Project?
Learning tour, there they go. The hands are going up. How about that? That's a nice representation, actually. Close race with Elizabethtown, I'll just tell you. Just letting you know where you stand.
Yeah, so we'll have some time of discussion and then some time for a little bit of Q&A at the end. So, David, take it away.
Thanks, Seth. It's really nice to see you all. Thank you for coming out. I know on a Thursday night in North Manchester, you've got other options, but I really appreciate you spending the evening with us. I know a lot of you. Some of you have not been subjected to me, but for those folks, I'm David Radcliff. I work with New Community Project. We call ourselves a small organization with a big goal to change the world, just like all of you. A lot of you are working on these things. I live out in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, near Roanoke, but I spend a week of my life every year in Indiana, kind of based in Fort Wayne this time. Preached at Beacon Heights the other day, and then middle school, then a high school, Bethany Seminary yesterday. You find folks this evening. Head to Wakarusa. I love that name. I head to Wakarusa tomorrow for Northwood Middle School. I think it's Northwood. I think it's what it's called. Anyway, so that's my my next destiny. And then our Earth Day retreat up in Michigan at Kalamazoo, Sky Ridge congregation. And then to California from there. So it's a swing. It's a swing that I'm making. And I try to do swings because you want to get as much out of the given trip as you can. The time and energy and fossil fuels and all that stuff you pay attention to, like all of you do. So New Community Project, our foci are care for this earth, which we are not caring for very well. And a lot of you are very much aware of these things. What a mess we're making for our planet and for ourselves. So, you know, that's we beat that drum pretty regularly, as you know. A lot of you know. You get some of our mailings. I do have a sign-up sheet I'm going to send around. If you want to get our newsletter, there's some of them over there. It comes out twice a year. And also, we send out emails to our Earth Care list and our gender justice list, where women and girls issues, and globalization, some of those others. So I'll send that around at some point. But I want to go far enough into this that you know what you're getting yourself into for the uninitiated. So at New Community Project, we work with the environmental issues, human justice issues, especially women and girls around the world, Native communities in the Americas, and marginalized people in our own communities. And our sustainable living centers, I have some pictures for you, they're doing pretty remarkable work at being resources for their people in their communities. I'm talking about firewood. I'm talking about food security. That's what I'm talking about here, transportation. And who would have thought? I mean, anyway, yeah. You never know how these things are going to unfold. And that's one of the things, and David Rogers probably, he remembers this with some chagrin maybe. We never were really big goal setters. He's a patterned guy. He likes to know where we're going, how we're going to get there. We sort of let things unfold. David was on our board for many years. Matt Boyer, who some of you know, was an original board member for NCP back in the day. By the way, this is our 20th anniversary. Who would have thought? Who would have, honestly? Oh, man. So now the next thing on that is don't miss the ice cream social at annual conference. Now, we're not doing it in the building because that's way too expensive. But we have, I found a couple of ice cream shops a block away, and they're going to get us a tub of their specialty, whatever. It sounded really good to me, whatever it was. So I'm thinking Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So just if any of you are going to annual conference, Put us on your short list. So those two things, human justice issues and environmental issues. And the third thing we call experiential learning, putting us in the place to see our world and ourselves differently. Because we think that's how to change. In fact, I did a virtual class from McPherson College. That's another Brethren school out somewhere west of here. Anyway, I did a virtual class for an ethics class at McPherson College 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't know. And Tom Hurst, the headmaster, had them write down 9 things from the presentation. 9 things from the presentation. And one of the young women wrote on there, if you want to change people, you have to affect them on an inner level. That's what she said. Now, there's other kinds of change that need to happen in our society. We all know that. But I feel like the prairie fire has to start here, among people like us, caring deeply about things that matter and being willing to put that forward. I mean, that's how I see this. And so we put a lot of emphasis. I'll show you later, we do some systemic things. We work with town councils and all that kind of stuff and state legislators and all that business. But at the root of it all, we're trying to impact people in this way. So we have the Sustainable Living Centers, we have the learning tours, which have a lot of alumni in the room, and then me traveling and talking. I mean, people can't come to us, we go to them. I probably do 150 presentations a year somewhere. But to me, that's our bread and butter. I think you've got to get in front of people, with people, either at the centers, on a learning tour, whatever. So that's a little of our modus operandi. I don't even know what that means, but it sounded good. So tonight, I'm going to, by the way, I just want to say I hope you've been well. We've been through a lot since I saw you last. So congratulations. Just making it to this room on this night, this is good. So yeah, we've been through a lot. At some point, nevertheless, we had to persist. Yeah, we had to do that, and we've done it. Not unlike our Lord. So if I had a scripture for tonight, it would be that Luke 9 passage. I've got it here somewhere. I don't think I'm going to. But Luke 9 passage, 10 and 11, when the apostles returned from some mission endeavor they'd been on, and he gathered them in, took them off to a quiet place in Bethsaida or something, and all the crowds found out about it, of course, as they do. And they followed him there, and he said, he welcomed them, he spoke to them of the kingdom, and he healed any who had disease. And to me, that sort of summarizes, for me anyway, Jesus' ministry. The welcome part is to give people a place at the table. And we know how well he did that. You can pick your category, and all of us could name people that had no place at the table, he invited them in. And I consider that the work of justice. How do we give people the decent chance for that decent life in all the different categories? And then to speak to them of the kingdom, to me, that's transformation. What's that word that's going to bring life and going to set us on that new path? And we see that as our experiential learning part, encounters of one kind or another that sets you in a new direction. And then finally, healed any as who had diseases. And to me, that is saying that this world is important. This tangible world, our wellness, our food, and Jesus fed the masses, the world creation around us. He used the creation as an exemplar for many of his stories and that sort of thing. And of course, God in the beginning said, and it was good, every step of the way. And so that tangibility of things, and that's our earth care for creation work, I guess, and generally the environmental part that we do. So that's what we got going tonight. So I tried to pick out things I thought you'd be interested in, but you guys, your interest range is so wide, it's pretty much everything we got. So I tried to do bits, smaller tidbits. So we're not spending a lot of time in any one place. So we're not going to dive really deep anywhere. But I thought just the skimming along the surface and getting a nice little sense of what we're doing. I think they told me we had an hour and a half altogether. So I don't mind if we use some of that just as we go along, if you've got questions and stuff. If it's hot on your mind, you want to ask that thing, feel free to do that. That'd be fine. And then we'll also have Q&A at the end. So let's just see how this goes. I don't know what it's going to. I like it dark. Seth, I don't know are people going to doze off if we cut the lights off? That's the issue we have to worry about. I worry about with 6th graders. I don't know if I had to worry about with this crowd or not, but we'll see how this goes. All right, so this is just a teaser. We're going to Yellowstone this summer again. I'm just telling you. We got empty spaces in the van, so we could take a few more people. I'm not going to talk much. We went, okay, see, here I am talking about when I said I wasn't going to. Anyway, we did Yellowstone for the first time the first year of COVID, 2020. We couldn't go to Denali, which is that sort of flagship environmental trip. And I'm thinking, what's the closest thing to Denali that we could get to? Because Alaska wasn't letting you in. I mean, honestly. So we did Yellowstone to Tetons. Not a bad plan B, I thought. And now we do it every couple of years now. So there, you know, a lot of you have been there. So yeah, you've seen. I'm just putting a teaser out. Oh, yeah. And we talk about ecological dynamics of all these places, the wolves and the elk and all that stuff, the moose, and then the mother bear and the threats to things as well as the beauty of the things. That's what we kind of work on. So that was it for Yellowstone. Whoop, not quite. We do a hike and we see the American pika at the top of the mountain. All right, here we go. So we are going to the top of the mountain. We don't climb Denali, but here we are in Alaska. You know, when we first went to Alaska, it would have been like 2003 with a group or something like that. I thought this may just be a one-off. I mean, there's no human rights issues going on here. Nobody's polluting plastic in the Savage River, all that stuff. But I saw the profound effect it had on people to be in this place. The bigness of it, the beauty of it. I mean, you got high alpine tundra and you got the tree line. By the way, the tree line. That's a wonderful book if you want to. It's on our reading list at our website. But it's a relatively new book, and it talks about the advancement of the tree line around the world and how the tree line used to be pretty stable right about the Arctic Circle, vacillating a few centimeters every century. It's marching northward at hundreds of feet per year because of climate change. But it's a wonderful book that it shows all the ramifications of that. So I'm just commending that one to you if you're interested in that sort of thing. There's Daniel Radcliff, my son, who's now with Ader Financial. The guy in the front there, yeah, he's enjoying it. And he used to lead my trip, help lead this trip with me in Denali, but then he went and had babies. So that was that. But as soon as they get big enough, we're going. And the other, you know, you're together in a campground for 5 nights. You're eating my cooking. That's a bonding experience right there. But last year, we were there in 2021, is our last trip. The Boy Scouts were in the next group side up. They caught too many salmon. We inherited 17 pounds of salmon. We grilled it right up, made a marinade, grilled it right up on the 2-burner stove. Oh, yeah. So anyway, but, you know, you're doing these things. You're out of cell phone range. You're with this group of people you never met before for the most part, and you're having this encounter with God's creation. I mean, it's just, it's a wonderful space for that sort of stuff, that sort of transformation to happen. Oh, and I do have a story for you. I think it's at the end. We camp at Savage River Campground. A couple of years ago, we're going back there. The driver of the bus spots a mother bear and her cubs. We stop and take pictures. She charges the bus. This is a long and entertaining story that some of you probably heard before, so I'm not going to go into it. But we did have an emergency exit. The very next day, we saw this mother moose and a calf down by the lake. I mean, seriously, here to the projector, or whatever that thing you've got going on, the camera. Here to the camera back there, is that close? It was a very nice moment. And again, how often are you going to see this? I mean, you know, the other thing, though, I'm just going to say this. I mean, along with the joy, there's the pain. I just read the other night that 86% of moose calves in Maine died last year from tick infestations. Because the climate's warming up, ticks are over multiplying. They're called winter ticks. I don't know why they call them that. Anyway, they're over multiplying, and then they hang around in chains on bushes where there's not as much snow anymore. So they got a ready-off launch pad to hop on either the adults who can stave them off, kind of, or on the babies. And when they find a baby moose carcass at the end of the season, like in the fall, the biologists count the number of ticks: 47,317. I mean, what a way to go. What we are doing, for me, the environmental part, I mean, why do we care about the environment? We've all got our reasons in this room. For me, one of them is simple justice. It is not fair what we are doing to the rest of creation. I feel like we'll be held accountable for this. Anyway, it's not fair. Along with all the other there are all many self-interest, serving interests, and all that stuff for caring for the earth, all that stuff, but anyway. So we hike out around, we're exploring the place. There's the wolf that had made those tracks. And I said to a bunch of 4th graders down in Versailles, I go to Versailles most years. They had a test this year, and I couldn't get down there. I was upset about that. Oh, Megan, the woman who graduated here 10, 15 years ago, got me in there at first. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, because she was on the green team or something here at college or something like that. Anyway, she got me coming there because she's a teacher. Anyway, she's moved on to have babies herself. But anyhow, so... why am I telling you this? Oh, because in the 4th grade, I said to some 4th graders, and then that wolf came back howling at the moon outside our campground. Well, a little fourth grade girl came up to me afterwards and said, "Sir, wolves aren't howling at the moon. They're communicating." Fourth grade girls. Oh my golly. There's a wolf pack, black, silver, 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 kind of right at this level going across the screen there. From 2006 to 2016, the number of wolves in Denali Park went down by half because the state of Alaska changed the rules so you could hunt them when they came into a buffer zone between state land and national land. And the wolves don't know the difference. So it went from 140-some to 70-some. Now it's back up to 90-some. But anyway, just, what we do. And of course, these keystone predators are critical to ecosystems. Yeah, you all know that. There's our group with the woman in pink. Where is she? She's back here somewhere. Where'd she go? Oh, well, okay. You can tell her I've told funny stories on her, okay? Just tell her that when you see her again. Anyway, there's our group from a couple of years ago. 2 summers ago, we hike this hike every year. There's value in doing the same things over and over. You can quantify. You get the storyline. And in this case, we had never seen permafrost melting on this hike up Mount Margaret. And for the first time 2 summers ago, there was a permafrost melting. I mean, I've been doing this hike for 15 years. I knew what's there and what isn't. Anyway, so just to point that out to the group and talk, they say the permafrost used to be 6 inches down in Denali National Park. Now you've got to go down 3 feet to find the permafrost. That's how much it's thawing. I say Alaska's thawing, burning, and melting. I've got examples of all those. So there's the thawing part. And then there's big bull caribou. There's always a big bull caribou on top of the mountain. I don't understand, but I do understand. It's flat. They can see predators. There's wind blowing. There's a fly that goes up their nostrils and lays their eggs in their nostrils. First of all, that's just rude. But then these caribou down at the bottom, down in the valley, they've got their heads underwater trying to get that stuff out of their noses. Plus, there's also their food source, the lichen. Caribou are grazers, the moose are browsers, and so there's eating his food source. And then, of course, in the wintertime, they still eat the lichen under the snow. And they use that front part of their antler to dig down through. But the ranger said it's not staying below freezing all winter long anymore in Denali National Park. And when snow freezes and thaws, you get a crust. And they're having a hard time to getting down through the snow. Again, what we are doing. Most of which we are clueless about, honestly. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Why am I going that way? All right, so 2 years ago, we were there in 21. I'm sure you probably read about this. But 2 years ago, we were there in 21. 2 weeks after we were there, that road gave way. That's the road back to Eielson Center. If some of you have been to Denali, you may have made that 60-mile bus ride. That's your best chance of seeing bears and moose and all that, wolves. They used to be a 40-some% chance of seeing a wolf. Now there's a 4% chance. And, that's a moneymaker for the park. So there's economic implications to this, not to mention the environmental implications. Anyway, so 2 weeks after we were there, that road gave way. And I don't think any buses were present at the moment, but it was built on permafrost. And now the permafrost is no more. So now it wasn't open last year. It's not open this year. It may open up next year. They're going to have to put in a $51 million bridge. Again, this all comes back on us. It comes back on us. So we're just trying to show that stuff. Glaciers are melting around the world, as you know. You see the patch of white up above the people with the white jackets on? In 1926, it was right here. That's Exit Glacier. It's exiting fast up the mountain. And so here it is in 2016. Oh, sorry, 2005, it was down about here somewhere. So there's 2016, 2019, 2021, the great disappearing glaciers. And of course, sea level rise, it's mostly from land-based glaciers. All right, so I'm working in Arctic Village here. We have alumni from Arctic Village. When we went there last summer. 3 million acres of Alaska had already burned when we were up there in August. Every day in America, an average of 2,000 acres goes up in forest fires. Now, half of that's in Alaska, but we all know it happens near us. Anyway, in fact, Todd Steele was telling me the other day you all had a fire warning in Fort Wayne or something. There's Arctic Village, 200 souls, Witch-in by birth, Episcopal by baptism, Caribou by culture. So that's the Brooks Range back there. A little dusting of snow for us last year, just to greet us coming in. Beautiful place. They're subsistence hunters and gatherers. Ducks in the migratory season. Caribou's their staple as the caribou migrate by their Gwich'in Indians. Caribou migrate by their communities up to the coastal plain of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, where they give birth in the spring, stay there a couple of months, then migrate back. And that's where they want to drill for oil. And the Gwich'in consider that a human rights abuse, not just an environmental issue, because their life and destiny is tied up with that of the caribou. They see their hearts as being shared at the time of creation. I wrote Senator Obama about this. I was living in Elgin. He was my senator back in the early 2000s. We'd just gotten back from Arctic Village. I said, just wanted you to know that the Gwich'in don't see this just as an environmental issue. They see it as a human justice issue, human rights. He wrote me back and said, I never really thought about it like that. I mean, again, for anybody to even, you know what I'm saying, that was really pretty cool. I've got the letter on my credenza at home. Anyway, it looked like he signed it. That's what I'm going to say when I put it up for auction anyway. So permafrost is melting up there, of course, everywhere, and you just see trees falling into the drink. I'm sure we saw some of this when you were there. It's still going. And of course, as the bank gives way because the permafrost is thawing, the rivers get wider and shallower, warmer. There were streams up there last year that was 70 degrees. And fish cannot live in that. There's not enough oxygen in warm water for fish to live there. And so while we were there, actually, another Indian native community sent Arctic Village a case of salmon on dry ice. So we grilled some salmon out in the shadow of Mount Kivatanale, the one we try to hike sometimes. Anyway, but you know, that's just kind of what's happening up there. So here's a picture I took of a picture. This is from like 1970. That broken down vehicle is still there. This is the road going right through Arctic Village, a little street, and this is the wintertime. Here it was last summer. I'm just showing you the difference. And you can see the machine, it's back in there somewhere. But, you know, with permafrost melting, things can put the roots down further and go higher. You're getting new species moving in. You've got the tree line advancing, all this stuff. Now, get this. This is from 20 years ago, our first trip up there. Look at the tundra. Just take a look at that tundra there. That's our camping. This is up at the hunting camp on the side of the mountain. So here we are at the hunting camp. So that's 20 years ago. 10 years ago, see what's happening there. Here's last summer. I'm just showing you. Melting, burning, and growing, Alaska. And of course, when you've got this darker green stuff rather than brighter, more reflective tundra, of course it absorbs more sun's energy and exacerbates climate change. This is Gideon James. He loves it when we come to town because he knows he's got a captive audience. He was texting me constantly saying, when are you guys going to come by here? Anyway, he's an elder statesman, as you can see, in the community. And he sat us down, giving us his spiel. And he's about protecting the environment and what the politicians. He said Biden got it half right with that infrastructure plan. But he said you can't just throw money at stuff and fix it. Which I thought was, yeah, we agree with that. All right, bye-bye Arctic. Hello Greenland. Huh? Our next learning tour, no, just kidding. But I was flying home from Nepal, and we took the circumpolar route. And you're supposed to keep the window shades down the whole time because the sun's going to come up or you're going to catch up with it at some point. Some people are sleeping on planes, not me. And I've got a window seat for a reason. At some point, I couldn't resist it. I popped the shade, and down below me was Greenland. I couldn't believe my good luck. So there it was. We were flying right across it on the way to Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia or someplace. But it's as large as the USA east of the Mississippi. 2 miles thick. And it's breaking up and thawing. At one point last summer, Greenland was losing 12 billion tons of meltwater per day. They say it holds 23 feet of sea level rise. Now, it'll be hundreds of years, so we don't have to worry about it. But let's end Alaska on a happy note. So this is, all right, I've got a prize. If anybody knows who this is, I've got a prize. She won the Olympic gold in the 100-meter breaststroke at the Tokyo Olympics, summer before last. She won the silver in the medley relay. This is her homecoming parade to Seward, Alaska. We were there the day of her homecoming parade. Anybody know? Recycled content ink pen, right here, right here. So y'all must not have granddaughters or whoever in the swim team. Lydia Jacoby. Lydia, 17 years old when she won that gold. And probably some of you saw the Olympics and saw her hometown gymnasium crowd, and they kind of went bonkers, let's just say, when that happened. Now that I've got the pin out, I'm going to send around the sign-up sheet because I usually forget to do this, period. So don't feel like some of you already get the newsletter. So this will be your excuse. If you don't want to get it, but you can pretend like you already gotten it, all right? So I'm just going to start it right there, and you can do it or don't do it. There's no forcing religion here. And one other happy way to end Alaska. This woman right here, her name is Anna. And about a month ago, I got an email with the subject line, Anna from Denali. And so I opened it up and started reading. And she said, I don't know if you remember me, but of course I did remember her. But this is Anna, and she was with this woman here. She came with Lori, who knew me, but Anna didn't, but she came on the trip. And she said, I just wanted you to know, I wanted to tell you how much this trip affected my life. She said, I never realized how important it was that we take care of this earth and especially address climate change. And now I'm a mechanical engineering major, but I'm added the minor of green engineering. And I want to find out what to do with my next summer, this coming summer. I want to see what to do with this coming summer. She said, I don't want to be making pizza at the Italian restaurant again. I want to do something valuable with my life. She's going to be spending a couple weeks at each of our sustainable living centers this summer, up in Vermont and down in Virginia. But that's what we're looking for. Yeah. Okay, I thought you'd be interested in the Dene, the Navajo reservation in Liebrook. Some of you know the Church of the Bevins had a mission. I don't like the word mission, but has had a mission point there since the mid-1950s. For the first time since we've been going there at New Community Project since 2016, we had a Native couple guiding us. And there's Marlene right in the middle, Marlene Thomas, and her son Eric. So they were our guides while we were there. Otherwise, it's been an Anglo, and that's okay, but it was, this felt good. And so they did a really nice job for us, guiding us. There's Elena from Peoria, Arizona. She worked on the clothing closet to get it all straightened out, did a nice job. And this woman, I'm just showing you the highlights. More about, we could dive into all of this. But this is Dorothy Keatso. She's a medicine woman. And her technique is hand trembling. She goes into a kind of trance and has some sand out before her, and her hand is shaking because of the trance, and whatever design comes out of that is her diagnosis of your problem. And she knows what to do with it, what herbs from the surrounding area to offer you for that. Now, some things she can't treat, and that's, everybody understands. But anyway, that's her. This is the second time we've seen her. This is our first trip since COVID. We were there in 19, and we were there last summer, the first time we could get back out there. She's also a woolster. What do you call people that work with wool and spinning and all that stuff? She does the whole practice. In fact, there is the sheep. That's the lamb. She's got bigger sheep out in the yard someplace. This one was in a box in her house. But she shears them, she cards it, she spins it, she dyes it, she makes it into things on that thing right there. One of the things she told us was that this was the second time we've been there. So she said, I appreciate that you came back to see me. She said, even people in my own community don't believe in what I do. She said, they've either got religion, they think I'm hoodoo, or they're just into Western medicine. They got no time for traditional healing. So just one of the things we try to do, and some of you know this, and we'll do it in Ecuador, is affirm local communities, because they've got a lot to offer us. And in these communities, this is where they sent them to the boarding schools in Arizona and put a bar of soap in their mouth, set them in the hallway if they spoke a word of their language. So, Oh, and she wanted to study crystals. Anybody know anything about crystals? I knew nothing. I knew nothing about it until I read a Tony Hillerman novel, a murder mystery. And some of you know he's an Anglo guy, I think, who writes about Navajo, or they call it Dene or Navajo lore and murder mysteries, but brings in all this cultural stuff. And the key part of this was trying to find Butch Cassidy's bones. That evidently there was a rumor afoot that he didn't die in a shootout in Argentina, like we did in the movie, but that he somehow made it back to New Mexico. And you can use crystals to try to find things. And so, that was so she wanted to do, and it's not just finding. I don't know what other purposes crystals serve, but she also wanted to get training, which 2 months, and going to cost her $1,800 or something. We found a way to raise that money. I just feel like we have to substantiate these Native communities. And that was a case of it. Now, when I was in Nepal this last time, I left my phone on the flight from Philadelphia to Doha. I didn't realize it till 4 minutes after I got off the ramp, and by that time it was too late to go back. I had a 9-hour layover. I went back to the place and tried to find it at the Lost and Found. It never showed. In fact, one showed up, but it wasn't mine. I got my heart race all going, but it wasn't mine. Anyway, and so of course, I wasn't going to tell anybody about this. It's embarrassing to lose your phone. And so we're sitting around with our learning tour group there about the 4th or 5th day, and somebody says, well, why don't you just check your phone for that? And I couldn't outright lie about it, so I had to tell them. And in the meantime, I told them the crystal story. Well, they got me a little bag of crystals while we were in Kathmandu. On the way home, it was at Lost and Found. I'm just going to say. We go to Chaco Ruins when we're there. Some of you have been to these places. That's one of the better pictures I've seen, or at least one of the better ones I've taken of petroglyphs. You can kind of, the sunlight was just right. It's really hard, I find, to get a good picture of petroglyphs. Anyway, so this is an ancient civilization that went under about 1100 AD. So before the conquistadors got there, they would already dispersed. Who knows what? That was also, I think, the little warming period, or the little ice age. The little ice age was about that time, so I don't really know if that had anything to do with it. But here's what they call the place now. Well, back in the 1970s, it was designated an energy sacrifice zone. In other words, there's things here we want, and we'll do what we got to do to get them. And you think about gold, you think about coal, you think about uranium, now you think about fracking, and that's all the stuff that's going on out there now. So we were there in 2016 when the pipes were being laid for the fracking. We were very lucky to see this, because now it's all underground. You don't even know it's there. And then the big corporations are all there making lots of money off this stuff. And there's, what's his name? I can't remember his name. But he's from an advocacy group. He's giving us the fracking tour. And there's all kinds of these wellheads and holding tanks and water tanks and all that stuff. I forget how many million gallons of chemicalized water it takes to drill one well. This is New Mexico. I mean, anyway. This is Kendra Pinto. She meets with us every time, a young activist. She didn't even know about all this stuff. And then, I should have put that picture in. Some of the tanks exploded. It lit a fire under her back in 2016, and she went on the warpath. EPA, BLM, State House in Santa Fe, and now they've armed her. Wilderness Society or somebody gave her a methane monitor. She can see the methane escaping from these wells. And it's sort of a hidden threat, because you can't tell the methane's escaping. And it's causing, there's a methane haze over that whole part of the country. And it's a huge climate change gas too, as you know. All right, bye-bye New Mexico. Amazon rainforest. Now, no, Kurt and Lena were there, so we're not going to talk a lot about the Amazon. I figure you've already had your dose of that. There's our friend Delio, who's been our guide for 15 years, the whole time we've been going down there. We saw an anteater for the second time last year. We'd only seen an anteater once before. I'm showing you the highlights, I told you. Nice encounter with a sloth. It's like been raining sloths on us lately. Don't get your hopes up. Where are they? Don't get your hopes up. Who knows? But, and probably the cutest monkeys I've ever seen. They're called night monkeys, and they have to have big, what do you call that, surface area, because all they got to work with is starlight. And so we'd all look cute like this if we just wandered around in starlight and had to deal with that. So anyway, there's our group from last summer, and there's Kurt back there on the right side, about the fourth, fifth person back. There's Lena right beside him. So there's our group. We had a McPherson College May term group with us last year. And this is the man who died recently. The guy there waving the branch, he's giving us a cleansing ceremony, and they use tobacco in this ceremony. I got a nice tobacco story I could tell you, but I'm not going to. Anyway, his name is Cesario. He's a Secopai shaman. He was 107 years old. And he told us when we were there, this will be the last cleansing ceremony I'm giving anybody. And it turns out this was last June. He died 3 weeks ago. And there's our group. Kurt's on the far right there. But anyway, that's our group. So just out of respect for this man, he was sort of the premier shaman of this area. That's his son Cesar, who had learned a lot of his knowledge, and let's hope and here's another hopeful thing. This is Aurelio. He's our partner in the Kofan people. We've been visiting his community, from the get-go, which is 15, 18 years. Now he's got a grandson that wants to learn the things of his father, his grandfather. This is so critical. This is not on a flash drive somewhere. This knowledge of the forest and this attitude toward the forest. And they've got it. And so, but he had to leave home to do it. If he was going to do it, he would have to leave home, visit other shamans, have to take time off from his income-producing work for the family. So we're supporting him at the tune of $3,900. So he can travel, so his family can continue to be okay. He's got to pay the shamans a little something. So again, it's just an investment we're making, I think, in the future of our planet, frankly. But also in the future of the Ecuadorian Amazon. All right, off we go to Nepal. That was it. See, I cut that short. Okay, I'm just telling you, I can do this when I have to. Here we are in Nepal. There's the highest mountain in the world. I put in a few wildlife pictures for. I thought we'd have some kids here tonight, but I got a few wildlife pictures in. There is Chitwan National Park, down on the southern border with India. You guys have been there. Chitwan. Anybody else? I hope I'm not leaving out anybody. I forget who's been where with us sometimes. Anyway, Chitwan National Park. It was formed in 1972. What's significant about that? 100 years after something. What happened in 1872? In the back. Well, you're in the ballpark. You're in the ballpark. Good guess. That's a good guess. Another national park, the first in the world. Yellowstone, 1872. So they consciously formed the park in 1972. Sloth bear. I'd never seen a sloth bear before. It was kind of cool. It's a low-light situation. It's not the greatest picture in the world, but I'll take it. And we had a nice encounter with a big bull elephant in the wild, which we've never had on that trip. They've named this one, the guides named this one Ronaldo. Anybody soccer fans in here? If you do, you know what I'm talking about. Ronaldo had a little issue, though. He got into a fight with another big bull elephant. It bit his tail off. First of all, that's just dirty play. Just like Ronaldo. Just like Ronaldo. Now that I think about it, they say he takes all these falls. I don't know anything about soccer, but that's just what I hear about Ronaldo. Gario crocodiles, marsh muggers. They're having trouble because whether it's going to be a boy or a girl when the eggs hatch. They're reptiles, they lay eggs. Whether it's going to be a boy or a girl depends on the outside air temperature. The warmer it is, more likely to be a female. The cooler it is, more likely to be a male, because we know guys are cool. Okay, but there's only 4 large males in the park now. I mean, these things come back on us again. So we had a nice encounter with a mother rhino. How do I know it's a mother rhino? Because the baby was right behind. This was remarkable. I mean, we've never had that kind of an encounter. These animals are being preserved really well, the big mammals, the rhinos, the elephants, the crocs, and all that stuff. That's not a mammal, but they're all being preserved really well. And the way they've done it is they get proceeds from the park entry fees back to the community, to the village, half of it, for roads, schools, and stuff like that. So they've got a vested interest in not enabling the poachers. And if you don't have the community working with you, it's going to be a little tough to care of your poaching enterprise. And then a lot of them have jobs in the park, and they're guides, and all this stuff. So there's an economic incentive for keeping these things in the game. Of course, rhinos are in the water quite a bit of the time for all kinds of reasons we all can imagine. There's a river running down through the park. 4 summers ago, the monsoon rains around the world. This will be a theme that will come back up tonight. The monsoon rains are going wacky. Either it doesn't rain, or when it rains, it pours. And people depend on these. But a couple of summers ago, they had flash floods because the monsoon rains came down cataclysmically. You see all the debris, washed out some villages, drowned 2 of the rhinos, and carried 10 of them downstream to India, the country next door. Rubber ducky floats? I have no idea how that happened, honestly. But there's I didn't take this picture. There's a moment of repatriation. The Indian government captured them and sent them back special delivery. There's a Samba deer, and looking on the lookout. This is as close as we've ever gotten to a Bengal tiger. I did get a picture off the web for you. The nations of the world that have tigers within their boundaries got together about a decade ago, or 15 years or something, and they made a pledge to try to double tiger populations. And they've pretty much done it. Nepal's gone from 135 to 280. I mean, this is a conservation success story. That we have to look for brightness where you can find it. And one of them was in tiger populations. Plus, people, they know they're valuable. People will come to your park to see the tigers. And so there's economic, but, hopefully there's better motives too. So here we are. Namaste. Some of you know this sign for greeting in Nepal. It's a Hindu country, so we attend some ceremonies. There's a crematoria down there. This is a Hindu pundit that I met on one of our earlier trips. And he will arrange your life, guide your destiny, arrange your marriage, all this kind of stuff. I wanted to talk to him. I mean, I went to Bethany. I want to know where he got his information. And so I asked if I could sit and talk to him. He said, well, okay, but he wanted to read my palm. That's what this was about, was getting my palm read. So I asked my friend, Nepali friend, to get a picture of me getting my palm read. Instead, he got the other guy to give me the evil eye. Now, this guy, back up just a second. This guy said, you know, he told my friend, he said, I've had lots of people come here and want to take my picture. I've never had anybody want to sit and talk to me. So how do we go to these places and not treat it like the zoo? I mean, really. So that's what we really worked at that, and all of you would do these same things, I know. So that's one of the things we try to bring to this. A lot of poverty. About a third of the kids are stunted in their growth mentally and physically. About 40,000 children die every year from unclean water in Nepal. There's partly why right there. And then there's this guy fishing something out of the runoff. And then he puts it into that little sack. I have no idea. It wasn't a moment to stop and talk to anybody, but just the indication of the poverty. So we work with girls' education, and we work with women's microloans and some skills training. This woman's name is Sigma Sherpa. We first met her like 5 years ago. She just learned about Shakti Samuha. As a child, she'd been sent from her hill area community to work as a household servant down in Kathmandu. Paid $3 or $4 a month, and 7 years old. Never went to school, whatever. Then her older sister arranged her marriage a little later than that to a guy who she'd never met, but who hasn't been that good to her from what I can understand. And then she went to work in the entertainment sector, thinking, well, if I'm going to get abused, I might as well go get paid for it. So she's in that demeaning sort of entertainment sector, the karaoke bars and stuff. And then she heard about Shakti Samuha, our partner, which means power group, formed by survivors of the sex trade, Shakti Samuha. And she got involved in one of their self-esteem workshops and got a microloan from us. And there we are visiting with her. This was Kim McDowell. Some of you know Kim McDowell. This was 2 Januaries ago. We were there. And she had 66 pigs. She's making enough money from those pigs to pay all her household expenses and save $300 a year. So, you know, if you crack the door, people walk through it. That's what our women's and girls programs are trying to do. And at the end, I said to her, Sigma, I just want to say that New Community Project, we're honored to have played some small role in your success. She said, it may have appeared small to you, but to me it was life-changing. So again, just a little bit can go so far in these situations. All right, so women do hard work all around the world. My friend Sarah from Ohio wanted to try it. She couldn't get off the ground. Walt Wilczek, giving her a hand there. She couldn't get off the ground. There go the women down the hill. When you run out of firewood, you turn to the next available fuel source. Now, maybe y'all got cows in Indiana that can stand on the wall, but I don't know about it. Didn't know they had it there. And here's another issue. About every 20 seconds, a woman or a child dies somewhere in the world from breathing indoor cook smoke. It's a global pandemic. And that's how, you know, you've been to the poor world. You've seen how people cook. This is how it goes. These women are making gravel. I've seen women make gravel on 3 continents. Taking a sledgehammer and making little rocks out of big rocks. 60 cents a day. I always ask the price of a chicken. So the universal product. And in Kathmandu, to get a chicken, $7. It's not like things are cheap. They're just not eating meat. They're not eating meat. So this girl's name is Pooja, 13 years old. She and her mother were carrying these bricks up the hill all day long. They told us between them they earned 75 cents. But at least she wasn't trafficked. We heard this on this trip. We were just there a couple of months ago in January, that when we'd first been going to Nepal, we were hearing the numbers 10 to 15,000 girls and women trafficked into the sex trade every year. This year, they told us 40,000. You're thinking those things are going down, but these things are going up. And they you know, all these women get tricked into this by some guy pretending to love them, marrying them, taking them to India on the honeymoon, and leaving them in the brothel. Or they promise them a job or promise them an education, and you get down there, there's no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. And in this, now the new factor is social media. You don't have to have a trafficker come to your village. You can find your friends online who want to do you some good. And then you fall for that. And these girls are desperate. These rural girls especially, they're desperate because they're kind of devalued in their own culture. They maybe didn't get an education, because one of the reasons is that for a young woman, when she gets married, she goes live with the husband's family. So you educate her, you don't get any bounce from that. All that income and education is going to come back to the husband's family. So you don't kind of bother with the girl. There's our group from this last January. Harriet Hamer's in there somewhere. Y'all might know Harriet. And there's Abe in the background there. So there's Harriet right in the middle, really. Abe Bergen's back in the background, her husband. Anyway, so this is one of the shelters. I can't show you pictures of their faces because of security and privacy things and just respect. But there are 15 girls in this shelter, age range from 5 to 15. And the 5-year-olds probably domestic issues. But they take these girls into the trade as young as 8. And if they're not maturing quickly enough, they inject them with a growth hormone, like we would a cow. They give them training at these workshops. Again, these women who started this organization were trafficked themselves. And so when they came home, nobody knew what to do with them. They didn't offer them any services, so to speak. So they started this organization to take care of other young women coming back from this predicament. So they're giving them training for job skills, giving them friends, getting them off to school. So there's the founder right in the middle, Charimaya Tamang. The woman on the left is Lakshmi, she's the counselor. The woman on the right, they call the warden. I said, we have a little different understanding of the word warden. So we call her the house mother. She's the house mother. And the guy in the back is Dilip. He is the lawyer that helps these girls take their traffickers to court. In fact, Charimaya in the middle was the first survivor of trafficking to successfully prosecute her trafficker. But, of course, the traffickers aren't that crazy about this idea, and they want to get revenge on these girls or grab them again. So we're there at this building, and by the way, you all might have contributed to this, but after the earthquake in like 2015 or something, their previous shelter had fallen to the ground. We actually, in a campaign after the earthquake called But Not Forgotten, we raised enough money, actually raised double, we raised $17,000 that they could use to buy land to build a new shelter. Well, we raised all total about $30-some thousand that fall. Anyway, so they have the shelter, the community built the shelter, we bought the land, but they needed a wall around it to keep the girls secure. I asked the question you don't want to ask unless you're pretty serious, and that is, what does it cost? Because once you ask that, they get their hopes up. They think you might be, $30,700. And again, we're not the biggest kid on this block, if you know what I'm saying. But I'm also thinking, who doesn't want these girls to be safe? So we called our campaign Keep Them Safe. Last January before last, through about May or June, $40,000-some. I'll show you what we did with the rest of it in just a minute. So yeah, the wall's going up as we speak. We work with other women's groups in Nepal. This is up in the Sindhupalchak, heavily trafficked area. This was right after the earthquake. You could look at the looks on their faces. So after the earthquake, we started working in this community through our partner, Shakti. And this woman got a microloan, started this little business. Then she expanded the business. It was doing so well. Then she bought the building. And here we are in January meeting with them on the top of her building. It was a celebratory moment. I mean, it was just so nice. So these women are vivacious. I mean, they've been through a lot. In fact, at one point, a couple of years ago, they told us, people only see in us what we were. Now, these women have no culpability in their trafficking. They were tricked, drugged, lured, whatever. But people still hold it against you. And so they said, now we can show them we are more than our past. So there's this self-esteem part of all this, along with all the practical implications. Oh, this woman got a goat project first, and then she bought herself a buffalo. Yeah. All right, and they also were telling us about the impact of landslides and how the monsoon rains was so much, the ground so saturated, plus there's some deforestation. And at one point, I just heard a thing on NPR yesterday about this. Maybe some of the rest of you. It was from Nepal, and they were talking about these glaciated lakes. The glaciers are melting. They're filling these big lakes of water held in place by a little earthen berm. And at some point, that's going to bust through that. Well, same thing with a landslide. It comes across the valley, blocks the river backs and backs and backs, and at some point, it's going to have its way with an earthen dam. And this is what happened about 2 falls ago. So, yeah, climate change. So it's our newest project in Nepal. That's Anisa. She's Chepang. That's her ethnic group. And that's Rukmani, her teacher. When we were there last year, we learned that these young girls were graduating from 5th grade, but would not be going on to school from there. In fact, I think I've got her, let me see if I've got her colleagues. There's the other 4 of them. There were 5 girls graduating from 5th grade. And if you're not in school after that, often these girls are married off at 13 or 14 years of age. Or they're trafficked. And so again, I'm thinking, how can we let this lie? Anyway, but even if they can go to school, here's where they got to go. 2-hour walk down the mountain. This ain't Indiana. 2-hour walk down, and imagine coming back up every day. But that wasn't the stopper for them. They would do that. So again, we raised some money, got them going. Here they are from last January. Look at them. Loud and proud 6th graders. And now I got one more picture on this. Now there's 11 more graduating this year. $250 a girl. That's a stretch. But again, I'm kind of thinking, who doesn't want these girls in school? So we're doing some special campaigns and that sort of things for these girls. Her name is, I had it written down, Lanisha, I think. Lanisha Chipong. Their all last name is Chipong, all of them. Last stop's Africa. Hard to get a bad picture of a zebra, I find. Nan's been in a couple of these situations. Elephants, 26 million in 1800, 350,000 today. They push over trees. You all know this. A lot of you know this. They push over trees. But the Maasai told people, all right, so people have trouble with elephants not only pushing over trees, but wanting to eat their corn around the world. Or their beer in Nepal. So you got a guy making indoors, making his home brew. The elephants gets a sniff of that. They got wonderful, olfactory whatevers. They get a sniff of that, and they want to get their trunk in that beer. Well, they don't make houses like that in Nepal like they make them here. And the elephant kind of bulls his way in. Of course, you got the drunk guy in there thinking he could do battle with the elephant. Nothing good could come of that. That's all I'm saying. But now that these Maasai people, I didn't take this picture. I have met some Maasai, but this is not my photo. Anyway, they noticed that elephants didn't knock over the trees with beehives because they're honey gatherers. And they knew the trees with honey in them and bees, the elephants left alone. And now they found, I just read this article a couple of days ago, they said that they figured out how to even get a little machine that makes bee buzz sounds with a battery, and it makes the elephants run away. They don't like to get stung any more than we do. We thought it was mice with the elephant's problem. That's only in the cartoons, evidently. But bees, or you could put beehives around your garden. So, that's just kind of, and they learned it from the local people. Why does it take us so long to figure this out? So we were in Malawi last May, on the way through Zambia up to Rwanda, and we made it too late for the safari in Zambia at the national park. And the guy said, how about a night safari? I thought, what are you going to see on a night safari? My first leopard, yeah. And they're endangered too because bush hunters, the people that come in for the bush meat. You know about this phenomenon? People that used to live in the rural areas like to eat stuff out of the forest. Now they move to the cities. But once you get a road into a natural area for mining, for palm oil, for lumbering, whatever, then the hunters come in and they say the forest falls silent because they're hunting out all this bush meat that people pay a pretty penny for up in wherever, the city. Well, that was the resource base of the leopards. So again, where are we? We're in South Sudan. A couple pictures from South Sudan. It's a refugee camp. This woman, this is the Pagarini refugee camp, 400 and some thousand South Sudanese refugees. I'll never forget, she stood up and she said, we've still got issues here. We're happy to be in a refugee camp away from the war in South Sudan. But, we run out of food at the end of the month. There's still some ethnic fighting within the camp. They said we can't even send our daughters to school, but we still give thanks to the Lord. And when I have people say to me, if those people over there just had more faith. So they're coming home now, and our last grant, we just sent $100,000 over to South Sudan. And a chunk of that, probably 30 or 40,000, was for women. Then another 40 or 50 for girls going to school, and then another 10 or 15 or 20 for reforestation. But we're doing probably 5,000 of that was for seeds and tools for returning refugee women to get their gardens back going. It must be Take Your Daughter to Work Day. Oh boy. So girls' education, we do that. Our program is called Give a Girl a Chance. A big part of that is sanitary materials. I would never have thought of this. But our friends on the ground said, if these girls ain't got those things, they're going to get behind. They miss school a couple days a month. They get behind. They drop out. They're married and pregnant before you know it. And so a big chunk of our grant every year goes for sanitary products. And they've worked at the whole idea of producing their own. It's complicated. I'll just say that. But we built a school a couple of years ago. You probably know this. There's 600 and some girls going there now. It's a boarding school. I call this one 8th graders with attitude. There was only mosquito nets are a big issue. They cannot afford $6 for a mosquito net. A lot of these children are orphans. And when I say orphans, it typically means their father's not around. But it's hard for the mother to earn enough money for all kinds of societal reasons and other things in a such situation like this. So 400 of the girls we found out didn't have mosquito nets, and 6 or 8 of them were going to the hospital every week with malaria. Some of you probably have malaria. I have. It's not that much fun. Kills 500,000 children in Africa every year. So we raised, 400 girls, $6, $2,400. This was actually my first Facebook campaign to raise money. This is about 5 years ago, this first time it happened. And we raised $2,500 in a couple of days. Some of you in this room probably contributed. And then during COVID, this is another boarding school that we didn't build, but we support scholarships for these girls and others. When the schools closed with COVID, all the other kids went back home to their villages. These girls couldn't go back home because one of the reasons they came to the school in the first place is that they conspired with their mother to get them out of the reach of their father so they couldn't be married off at a young age. I guess a 15-year-old girl in South Sudan is more likely to die in pregnancy and childbirth than she is to graduate from high school. Them's the odds. And so they couldn't go home. They were stuck at the school. They were running out of stuff. So we had a campaign in March of 2020 or April or something and raised money for soap and toothpaste and all that stuff. Climate change, big issue in this part of the world. Disease vectors expanding, making young women's lives harder, getting water for the family. We're planting trees. We have our 2 million tree campaign. We're trying to plant 200,000 trees a year for 10 years. Pretty much on track to do that, including in places like South Sudan. Rwanda, vivacious people there. This is Dusabi. She got a microloan through us and through our partner there to start a small business. Her husband was skeptical that she, being a woman, could get this business, make this business successful. Then he lost his job. Now he's working for her. Oh, I'm so glad this picture didn't flip. It's a vertical and it likes to flip this way. I'm so glad. I just love this picture. Just something about this young mother and her 2 kids. She's got a yam business going. She makes a couple bucks every couple of days. She said, but this has opened my mind. I never knew I could be a businesswoman. And we do tailoring training all through the region. Congo, Rwanda, South Sudan, all those places. There's a woman holding up her wares, young woman. They attend school, training 9 to 12, 3 days a week. Then there are other times they're doing day labor. And we just have, I don't know if I have a picture. I'm not sure I have a picture of what else I want to tell you about this. Then when they graduated, they were having trouble having a sewing machine. They had to rent one for like $4 a month. Which, to me and you, but for them. And so we had a little campaign this past fall to buy a sewing machine, treadle machine, for every graduate. I think we were 19 or something. And people came through, $140 a machine. So there they are. Now let's see what I got for you. Yeah. And here's when I'm talking about high school kids. I say, think about your used clothing. It's being shipped abroad. When you put it in Goodwill, it's ending up in places like Rwanda underselling these local tailors. In fact, Rwanda has a law. You can't bring used clothing from the United States into their country by shipment. I mean, the shippers can't bring it in. But they smuggle it in from Congo. So this is right down the street from that tailoring workshop I just showed you. So our used clothing, we feel so good about putting our stuff in use. Look, we're doing something useful with this thing that we got tired of. Well, there's more dynamics to it than that. All right, Pygmy women. We've been working with Pygmy communities now for a couple of years. These people were in the forest until a couple of decades ago. But they got driven out partly by mountain gorilla habitat, which I'm all for protecting gorillas. And gorilla populations have gone from 600 and some to over 1,000. That's positive. There's a baby and a mama. There's a daddy. There's a mama making faces at you. There's a daddy charging you for laughing at the mama making faces at you. I didn't take these pictures. My friend Becca did. I couldn't afford it. It was $750 then for that half-day hike up the mountain to see the gorillas. I think it went up just after we were there to $1,500. But, people will pay that. Some people, some of us can't, but some of them people can. Anyway, so they got run out of their area for gorilla habitat, as well as some other things. Now they're living in squatter settlements. I never asked to go in somebody's house in a situation like this. I don't want to be voyeuristic, you know. Look how poor these people are. But Etienne, the brethren pastor on the far side there, some of you probably met Etienne at annual conference. He's hard to avoid. He's a live wire. Anyway, and he brings all his stuff for me to sell, his bags from the women and whatever. I have to put them on my table, which I'm happy to do. Anyway, he got me invited in. I wasn't looking for the invitation, but he said, come in, come in. So I had to take a few pictures, of course. There's their house, those two pictures. We weren't received with open arms in the beginning. You know the pygmies. Everybody wants to take pictures of the pygmies. And so, you know, I understood that. But I tried to break the ice in some way. So I said, tell us about life in the forest. Well, all these people in this village were too young. They didn't remember being in the forest. But they had an older guy there. So he comes out. He said, let me tell you about hunting the elephants. I thought, I want to hear about the pygmies hunting the elephants. So he said, we go out in the forest to where the forest elephants are. We would figure out which way they're going to run if we chase them. We go up ahead of them, put our spears in the ground, sharp side up at a diagonal, go around behind them and chase them in that direction. And they would impale themselves. And they said we had to give the ivory to the king. This must have been the Belgian colonial period. Anyway, but they got the meat, I guess. So that's the pygmies hunting the elephants. The children, they go out of school, they leave school in the middle of the day and do begging to get food for the family. The women, here's your work women, carrying 150-pound sacks of potatoes for 75 cents a day. And you see a man walking there with nothing. So we're trying to warm up to them, but also not to warm up to them. We're trying to reach out to them and support them in what they're trying to do. So Etienne, the brethren pastor, raised all these hens from eggs, and he carried them up there in the back of his vehicle. And so every woman, how many ever women got the pig project? Oh, I forgot to put the sheep in. Oh, I forgot to put the sheep in. We just started doing a little sheep project. Anyway, and during COVID, we sent food relief over to these Batwa. That's kind of what they have different names, pygmy, Batwa. We'll try to call them Batwa. Also, we worked with a congregation in Pennsylvania who had some money in their pocket and dug a well for $8,000 or $9,000, serving 850 families in a Batwa community. And then of course, they were land people in the forest, living from the land. Well, they had no land anymore. So we found 7.5 acres in one place and 9 or someplace else, and bought some land for them. And those are you see the corn and the potatoes growing there? They're dancing in the potato fields. The only question is, are they doing the mashed potato? I got a prize, somebody wants to demonstrate. I got a prize, somebody wants to demonstrate. And then we heard from our friend over there, there's so much maternal mortality. We got it bad in the United States. Among the rich nations, we're the worst for maternal mortality. But here, 1 out of 24 women dies in pregnancy and childbirth. I mean, imagine that. So our friend in Congo, Ron, who's a brethren pastor, wanted to hold midwife training. So last Labor Day, we had a fundraiser for midwife training. And so we raised $3,500, which means they get a 2-month training, and then they get a little medical bag to go out and practice their trade. And there's some of the recent graduates. That's from that class right there. So, yeah. So we're trying to be responsive. These aren't things that I ever thought about doing, or we ever thought about doing. But when the need presents itself and it's sort of in line with our general movement of our interests and work, and I feel like there's support there, we'll try to do it. So I think this is the last stop. I can't keep track. But we're in Malawi. There's a baobab tree. They call it locally the tree of life. I guess it soaks up so much water in the rainy season that you can tap it for water in the dry season. Elephants have figured this out. Because climate change is affecting typical elephant watering holes. But they can smell the water in the baobab tree. And it's got kind of a soft bark, a paper, not paper thin, but you know what I'm saying. Not like a maple tree. And no, they don't push it. I think they use they go burrow into the tree. And they say the flesh of the tree is like watermelon. I don't mean taste, but I mean consistency. But to an elephant, it probably tastes like the taste too, because you're thirsty. So every time we've gone there, the people there in Malawi have been down to a meal a day. If you ever saw the movie The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, they were down to a meal a day then in Malawi 12 years ago. So it's a chronic situation. It's because the monsoons aren't coming regularly. That's what it's about. Either no rain or too much rain. So drought, floods, they're getting cyclones in there they'd never had before in this part of southern Africa. So what they've turned to is charcoal production. You've got to feed your family. So one income source is charcoal. So you cut down a tree, chop it up, stack it up, set it on fire, cover it with soil, so it bakes in an anaerobic process, making charcoal. And then they sell it out by the road. Now, I just heard lately that for the average family of 4 or 5, to cut enough trees to make enough charcoal to feed their family for a month, it takes an acre of trees. Just imagine. So our friends are working with them on all this stuff, but you've got to meet the food need first. So they're working on strategies for food production. My friend Tom Benevento, our sustainable director out in Harrisonburg, Virginia, he was with me there in 2019 when we were there. He also spent a month in Malawi, working with people on climate resilient food production. So there's Tom in the middle there. They take matters into their own hands. When the rivers flood and come toward their gardens, they're digging these diversion ditches. And if you and I were digging this, we'd have a backhoe. They're using their back and a hoe. That's what they are doing. So it's not like they're not willing to put their own investment in this. They are, very much so. And we're planting trees. We'll probably plant 60 or 70,000 trees in Malawi this year. And some of you in this room support our If a Tree Falls program. There's Chloe, BVSer from Huntington, Pennsylvania. There's some of the girls that they were going 50 miles away to go to high school and living in little rented rooms. So our partners asked us to build them hostels. And so we built 2 hostels at $9,000 a piece a couple campaigns ago. And here's where the other $10,000 went from Nepal. Some of them were feeling insecure. They're far from home. There's some rowdiness in the village. They were feeling insecure, and our partner asked for a wall. I didn't know where we'd get the money. We raised $10,000 too much for Nepal. And there it is. So, yeah. There's Taona, our partner, right in the middle there. We met her in Vermont. She was on an exchange program with 350.org, the climate organization. And we had our board was meeting there. David, were you there for that? I don't think you were there. I think you had retired by then from the board. But we had a supporters dinner, and we invited the 350.org person. She brought Taona. Taona saw what we were doing and says, you have to come to Malawi. So that's how we got involved in Malawi. Also, girls are walking 14 miles each way to school. I'm a bicyclist like some of you. That's what came to my mind. There they are parading with their new bicycles. We have a program called A Girl and a Bike. $150, $60, they get a bicycle and first term tuition. They said, we're singing a sweeter song now because of the scholarships and the bicycles. All right, there's Tom and our site in Virginia. This is our Sustainable Living Center in Virginia. Tim Krebs. Is he from your area? Maybe Tim Krebs? Anyway, there's Tim Krebs there, Bridgewater College professor. We're doing stream restoration. Somebody gave us 40 acres. Not gave us, but let us use it. And so we're putting in a way, showing a way to raise food without increasing climate change. Call it the Jubilee Carbon Farm. We also do school gardening programs with elementary and middle school kids, all in the community of Harrisonburg. We're working with a group called Give Solar to put solar panels on every new Habitat for Humanity build in Harrisonburg, and eventually the state of Virginia. Now, we don't run the organization. We give the executive, if you call them that, a stipend so they can live, but they run their own program, but we're just supporting them in that. And there's Tom cutting the ribbon on the Greenway. We raised a couple $1 million to build a Greenway to help people get from one part of the town to the other without a car and not take their lives in their hands. And Tom, just recently, I found out he's the closest thing we got in our organization to an expert on anything. And Tom knows about sustainable development and sustainable agriculture. He knows about wildlife conservation. And so now he's going to be working with the Jane Goodall Institute. I'm dropping a name right here. With the Jane Goodall Institute, as well as a couple other regional bodies, to work with poor farmers to find ways to grow food that also preserves habitat, provides wildlife corridors, that kind of stuff. And Jane Goodall is interested in this. And they're going to pay his way. He's going to go in the winter when things are slow in Virginia. And so it's our contribution to the world, kind of, this guy, Tom Benevento. All right, we got a site up in Vermont. There's Pete offloading stuff from Trader Joe's that will be thrown away. Our food justice garden. The local principal said, I don't know what we'd have done without you. Because we do a lot of food reclamation and provision for people, poor families in the area. She said, I don't know what we'd have done without you in terms of keeping these children fed. This was like a year ago she sent that. Maybe it's during the COVID period, who knows. Anyhow, and we're well known and well loved in the community. This organic garden place, our shop, they raised $3,400 for us, just putting a jar out, I guess, and we were their cause of the month or something. But he's just got such, Pete, that's Pete on the left, he's got such a reputation. He's working with us because he had Tom Benevento as a camp counselor in the 9th grade in New York State. And his mother passed away 6 or 7 years ago. Pete's going through his stuff at his mom's house, finds his diary from that week at camp, sees Tom's name, thought, I wonder whatever happened to that guy. He was really cool. Looks him up on the web, sees he's working with us, said, that's what I want to be doing. He was working with Green Mountain Club, one of the trail groups up in Vermont. That wasn't far enough. That wasn't edgy enough for him. So now he's our guy in Vermont. Pete Antos Ketchum. Again, these things sort of unfold. I got a call out of the blue from him. We promote bicycles wherever we go, as you know. We get involved in the community. I already told you that. We pack the city council meetings down in Harrisonburg. And Pete up in Vermont is meeting with legislatures as they're trying to pass legislation that affect the poor especially, to tell them what it's like for the poor, to tell them what life is like for the poor. Because these people are distanced a bit. We're almost finished. We're almost finished. So we're active not only on our sites, but we're trying to sound that trumpet out beyond ourselves, because you've got to do that too. If you go to Vermont, you get to stay in a yurt with a private bath. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I have no idea what time it is. How did I do, Seth? What time is it, man? I don't think that's bad, because you know how I do. Well, okay, I'll entertain any questions, or you can straighten me out on stuff that I got wrong, or I know there are people in this room that can do that too. So we can talk after maybe. How about that? But how about it? Questions or comments or anything at this point? Yes.
There are 1 million trees
Yes.
around the world.
Yes.
Are you doing different trees in different areas for different purposes?
Of course. We don't make any of these decisions. The local people, they know what their native. In fact, we just preserved an 8-acre parcel of native trees that was endangered by the charcoal production. But everything they plant are local to the area. Yes, we don't. That's not our decision. So whatever they think is the thing they need in their situation is what we do. Yeah. Great question. What else? Any other questions or comments?
I'm trying to understand your structure.
She wants to understand our structure, David. So was he when he was on our board. But go ahead. Go ahead and tell me your question.
Like all the different places that you go to,
Yes.
and then there are little projects for
Yes.
justice or
Yes.
then when you raise the money, and who is there to construct the building, to see that, or to oversee the young girls,
Sure.
to teach them? Where do you get the teachers? Where
Yeah.
do they come from?
Yeah.
And then, once you get the money to them and everything, are you just hands off then?
We go back.
You're going back each time? Is that one way you try to keep, or?
The key is finding honorable people to work with, of course, as you would know. And we work with these local nonprofit, well, they call them nonprofits. I don't know if they're technically all nonprofits or not, but grassroots organizations. In Malawi, that Taona, the woman I showed you, we met her in Vermont. In Rwanda, ETN, the Brethren Pastor. In Congo, Rana Brethren Pastor. In Nepal, the Shakti Samuha, who I talked to and introduced you to. So those are all people there. We have none of our staff, other than Tom now going to do some specialized training. We don't have any of our people in these places. But we have come upon these groups. In Myanmar, a wonderful Baptist group. Oh boy, I miss Myanmar. Oh, they've got that coup. It's dangerous there. Oh, I feel so sorry for those people. But in Myanmar, we work with a great Baptist organization. So we work with whoever is the reliable partner, who we have found kind of by hook or crook. I mean, the Baptist people, I earned an around-the-world trip with United Airlines in 2005. If you flew Chicago, I was still living in Elgin. We'd already started a new community project. But if you flew a route 12 times between Chicago and any of the D.C. area airports, 12 times in a year, they gave you a free around-the-world ticket. And I ended up being hosted by this Baptist development group in Myanmar, who we still work with. And in South Sudan, I had a lot of experience in South Sudan with the Church of the Brethren. I used to work for the Church of the Brethren, 15 years now, 20 with NCP. I already was taking groups to South Sudan, so I knew people there. And we could fit right into that. And the Taona was her own story because of the Vermont connection. But you see the work they're doing, and you go there and see especially how the people respect them and how they're attentive to the people. That's what you're looking for. And then not looking for a lot themselves. And you can tell. I mean, they show me all the receipts and all this stuff and all those things. So that's our methodology. Yeah, David.
But David, I think it is important for people to know that we have built a trust
Yeah.
with the people there. When you've been there and they've
Yeah.
done as good as your word,
Yes.
and that you're going to back them or let them know what the limits are.
Yes.
And there's just a group of people that really trust them,
Yes.
and so they can work together.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate to find just these high caliber people in all these places, whose hearts are in the right place, who've got the knowledge about it. Also on a growing curve, that woman Taona, who from Malawi, we're helping her get to some permaculture workshops so she can advance her own training and learn more to bring back to her people. We're also doing something else a little unusual. Well, I won't say it's unusual. For us, it is. We brought a woman from Nepal. The last time I went to Myanmar, in 19, we brought a woman from Nepal, from Shakti Samuha, to Myanmar. Because they're right next door, kind of, but they never get to talk. We get to go there because we got the resources. They've got a lot to say to each other. And our friends in Myanmar love it when we come, but it's not like the conversation that they will have. And we took Taona up to Rwanda with us last May, because we want this cross-fertilization happening between the South-South, rather than North-South. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing that we think is pretty important. And the cross-fertilization that happens there and the mutual, the sharing. And the woman from Shakti Samuha came back with ideas for reforestation that they didn't have before because she saw it happening in Myanmar. So, who else? Questions, comments?
What do you worry about?
What do I worry about?
Since you're actively looking at what you can and all, is there,
Well, of course, I worry that we're not going to succeed. That we as a human family, and I don't mean NCP, I think NCP is going to be just fine. But I worry that we as a human family and a biotic community will not succeed. Now, nature will go on and refabricate itself better without us at some point, but that worries me. And the fact that we are so oblivious in this society, that worries me. And how to get us off that place to consciously care about things. And that's our work. We're trying to get people to consciously care and to begin to take responsibility, which theoretically is an American virtue. I don't know. We don't do that well at it, but that should be that's a virtue that we've taken for ourselves. But we don't. We avoid responsibility, and so that worries me. James Speth, former forestry professor at Yale, was a White House science advisor in the 1970s or 80s, fairly well-known author. He was meeting with a bunch of church people, pastors maybe at one point, and he said to them, at one time, I thought the greatest challenges facing our world and the environment were, I'm going to make this up because I don't remember exactly, resource degradation, climate change, and overconsumption. Let's say those. And that we scientists with enough science could figure this out and fix it. And he said, but I realized then I was wrong. Our biggest challenges aren't these three. And again, I'm going to have to make these up because I don't remember exactly. But greed, selfishness, and a third one that I'm not coming up with. And he says, we scientists don't know how to do that. That's where we need your help. And to me, this is our role. How do we be this voice of conscience in our society when everybody else is fiddling while the boat goes down? And we've got, and the positive side of this is we have something really to offer. We have a life that's really life. We have a life that's not your poor granddaughters having to look at TikTok all the time and feel bad about herself. We're helping people feel good about themselves. I had a woman email me the other day. She had heard Tom Benevento speak in her class at James Madison University. Then she went on a field trip with her club or something over there. Was so taken by what she had seen. She said, I'm not going, she's in her graduate program in something, too fancy for me to remember, but she's in a graduate program for something. She said, I'm not going to write a thesis anymore. I'm going to spend an intern year with you as my thesis, as my graduate project. And she never heard of us before. Of course, most people haven't heard of us before, except you poor people. But, you know, to have that kind of an impact on people and to think where that can lead us. I'm a mustard seed kind of person. You know, how do you keep hope alive? You know, those parables. Thank goodness for those parables. From the smallest of seeds comes the greatest of shrubs, in which the birds of the air make their nest. I mean, that's what keeps you, that's the hopeful side. You ask what gets me worried, but that's the hopeful side. And people like you, that this many people will come out for a Thursday night in North Manchester. I mean, that, and to have a group of grade school people and high school people, and last night at Bethany, they seemed interested. You know, and that also is a real, and then our partners abroad. And to see what they're doing in the face of great difficulty and how they're making really miraculous things happen in those places. So those are the things that give me hope, and that's what I'd rather think about, actually. You guys, Daniel So, I didn't show you Daniel So's picture, the Dene leader from New Mexico. I asked him one time, you know, his people are selling off their property for the fracking to happen. You got the government coming in, the state government's making a lot of money off of it. I said, Daniel, how do you keep hope alive? He said, well, one, we've got the spirits of the ancestors around us, pushing us on. And then he said, if we don't do it, who will? And so at some point, it's like the parable of the sower. We're putting it out there. Our job, we don't control the rest of it. Our job is to put it out there. Oh, I mean, all of us. Us too, but y'all too. How do we sow these seeds, trusting in the promise that some of them will bear fruit, and maybe in a way that makes a real difference? That's what I hope for. I don't know what else to do, but I got a better plan. Yes.
I think one of the things that is so stunning are the dollar amounts that you throw out. Because, you know, a sewing machine for whatever,
140.
And the $10,000 for this, and you think, you know, there are people who spend that much on a latte. They spend that much in a year on lattes.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, what that, it just doesn't, it never seems like very much money.
No.
Say $121 for a sewing machine. Oh my gosh, that just doesn't seem like very much. And what you're able to do is such, what doesn't seem.
It feels small but mighty.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and I don't say that, I'm not saying self-congratulatory way, but in what we're able to facilitate happening between you all and them all, the things we can facilitate happening are pretty astounding, really. I mean, some of these communities, there's nobody supporting girls' education in big towns in South Sudan. Why? I don't understand why, but we are, and it's making a difference in those places. So yes, it is. It's marvelous and really miraculous, and so we don't take credit for it, really. These things are happening. We're just trying to play our small role and then let things unfold. And you all play your small role and let things unfold. Number one wish. That almost seems like something that hasn't happened when you say a wish. I hope that what keeps happening is that we have people like you in our corner. We have people like your grandson who wanted the shirt, like her grandson who thought our shirt was cool. I want to think that we still groove with old people, with young people, with our partners abroad, and with nature. That all of those partners feel like we're okay. And that really is my wish. I don't have any, as David knows, things unfold at New Community Project. So we're careful not to make too many wishes because things come your way. And if that resonates, then you're in business. But my biggest wish is that we say keep our true north, and gosh, I don't want to cry, but that we keep our true north and stay true to what we feel called to do. And I think if we do that, we'll have the help we need. Here, in Malawi, in the 6th grade class, wherever, I think that help will materialize if we stay true to who we are and what we think in our deepest core, what our values are, and model that with taking reference from you people, taking reference from Jesus, taking reference from our neighbors and from youth people. So the feedback, it's a process of communication and mutual edification in all these situations. So just to be open to that, that's really my only wish. All we can do is be true to who we are, as all of us. That's what all of us say. All we can do is be true to who we are and our best being, our best self. And we're trying to do that as best we know how.
Dave, could you say a little bit about how you approach a public school 6th grade class to send an effective message without stepping out of bounds in a public school setting?
Well, I find, first of all, I get invited in by friendly teachers. I'm not going into hostile environments. So I don't talk religious talk at all. But, the realities of this world, when I show them kids around the world pictures and those girls, the Chapang girls, that's just something for them to think about. Or if we talk about the environmental stuff, I did get in trouble at Wakarusa at Northwoods about 6 years ago or something. The local John Birch Society, or somebody like that, I don't know who it was, got wind of me and that I hated cars and car drivers. That was the word on the street. And so they had a petition campaign to get me disinvited when I was coming back the next year. Well, my friends there, I've got moles in the palace. And so my friends there worked out with the principal, well, they'll have to get a signed permission slip. Which, I'd rather them get a signed permit not to come rather than to come. You know what I'm saying? You got a better chance, I think. But filled up the auditorium, so the kids spoke and their families spoke. But I talked to, why am I telling you this? But and then I set up a lunch with this woman. She said, I've never met anybody like you. Because I was calling her on the carpet about Christianity and stuff. I figured she's a conservative person. She's probably a Christian. And I was saying, God gave us this earth, and if you don't want environmental regulations, what are you going to do about those power plants over in Ohio? Let's go keep your air clean. That's exactly the kinds of things I was saying to her. So, again, I don't remember what got me going down this path. But anyway, there is some pushback occasionally. Oh, the pushback question. So occasionally that sort of thing, but not very often. And so I just pictures and stories, and they leave with a bookmark. And so just something. Versailles is my favorite, down at South Ripley Elementary. She got me into. No, I don't think so. Dennis, Megan Dennis. Her married name might be Megan Dennis. Am I maybe getting the Megan wrong? Anyway. It'll come to me probably, Jim. Anyway, at Versailles, and I couldn't go this year because they had testing or something. It broke my heart. But they would give me access to every class in the school every year. 6 grades. I do a little something different with each grade, whatever the teachers want me to do, I do that. I like doing things. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. So that really worked fine for me. But what a rare opportunity. And, that's trust. Because of her, initially, she got me in there. And so, therefore, Megan Marie. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Yes, thank you. So she got me in there because somebody trusted. And of course, I don't want to make them look bad, so I'm on my best behavior, Steve. So anyway, but generally, they're happy for me to come. And I'm saying things that, of course, they don't have the experience. A lot of teachers, some teachers do, but most teachers don't have the experiences I have. And to show them real things in the real world related to them and kids like them, for instance, or the environmental things. Kids they care about the earth. And so I can connect with them in a really good way. And so, Steve, that's what I do. Yeah, and...
Maybe you think it's the inspiration the students have that the teachers then have a way to give something to
I hope it prepares some ground for them to take the next steps with them. And I try to support what they're doing. I try to figure out what in the world you want me to do here. What have you been doing with them lately? And then I try to build into that. And then hopefully that gives them a springboard for where they can go with something. Yeah. Schools are my biggest audience these days. And that's one of the nice things about not working for the Church of the Brethren anymore. And no offense to that. But then you're expected to go to youth groups and churches, and that's okay. That's what they're paying your salary. I understand that. But boy, this is fertile ground out there. It's just a real opportunity for me, and I hope for them. I don't know. But it gives them something to think about. That's our job, trying to give people something to think about.
I'm going to ask you if you've thought about trying to mentor someone when you need to leave.
We are doing that. We have a couple, just people kind of come through into our screen, and we find ways to help them think about another thing they can be involved in, kind of consciously doing that right now with a person. And so, yeah, we have that in mind, yeah. I'm never going to go away, but in case, well, of course, Jesus comes, I'll probably be left behind. But anyway, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's on our minds as a board. I had a 14-year-old tell me in 5 years she was going to take my job. Which I appreciate the spirit. Anyone else?
What are your trips that are coming up?
We've got South Sudan next month. Of course, Sudan's having the conflict right now, but this is South Sudan. So, it's a little kind of unnerving, but it shouldn't be. We got an email from our partner today saying there's no problems in her part of the world. So South Sudan, then the Amazon rainforest in first week in June, Dene Reservation in late June, Yellowstone, the Tetons in late July, then Denali and Kenai Fjords in the early part of August. Pretty nice line. Then Nepal next January. That could be a trip for some of you. Nepal is quite a trip. And we don't hike we do an overnight trek, but we have alternative transportation arranged, as you all know. One can get there another way. So, yeah, that's the ones coming up. It's good to be back in the swing. Last year was our first full year. So it's a big part of our work. And just to keep the relationships going with the people, communities, that's all important too. So, and to give us the opportunity to get people out into the field. Yeah, anyone else? Yes, Roger.
People, we know that South Sudan, it's not like it is around here. I mean, just the roads and different places.
Yes.
So you have contacts and all that you can get at least some places.
Well, we don't know exactly where we're going to go quite yet. I know we'll go across the border in Nimale, where we have most of our programs. It's just right across the border from Uganda. To get to the next village where we have some significant things going on, we would fly if we had to. I don't like flying places within a country, but we'd fly if we had to. If that's an acceptable way to get there, we would do that. But yes, you're right. Just navigating the roads in a place like South Sudan, where potholes are just about like this, honestly, many places. So, yeah, it's arduous. But when you arrive at that destination, you know how it is. They got that cool cup of water waiting for you, and they're welcoming you, and it sort of somehow makes it worth it. Yeah. Anyone else? Muchas gracias a todos. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Seth. Thank you for lining this up. Randy, couldn't have done it without you.
I'm Barry. We haven't met.
Tell me your name again.
Beverly.
Oh, yes, I
Mike and
certainly know
Barry.
about you. I've heard of you.
I'm Joel. I belong here.
Joel, nice to meet you.
I'm very interested in what you're doing in Ecuador. I've been down there
Oh.
many times.
Oh.
And I'm curious if you've run into Douglas McMeekin as you've been thinking about the
Should hook them
Amazon.
up.
He has done this